Everything wrong with Pubg. Before I start talking about the many flaws in this game, I'd like to just say that I don't hate Pubg. Currently, as of recording this video, I have amassed 800 hours of gameplay, so please consider this as a non-biased analysis of its shortcomings, with my opinion serving purely as a perspective. That being said, the game sucks. Initially, Pubg entered Steam Early Access on the 23rd of March 2017, with the ambition of releasing regular updates until the game's full launch. This was expected to happen in September of that year, but didn't actually follow through until December 20th. While in Early Access, the game was able to attract an unrivaled following, receiving an awful amount of praise for its general authenticity and rapid development. I was able to get my own copy of the game on the 25th of March 2017. So what went wrong? Well, I'll show you. I've just started up the game, and I'm already presented with a crappy temporary reward item. First of all, why not make the reward item permanent? Look at how many goddamn skins there are now in this game, and the only thing they can give me is a red beanie and a shitty little red nose. What is the problem with giving decent rewards to the player? I'll be frank for a minute. This game costs £26.99, which is already a sizable fee for what feels like an incomplete experience. Fortnite features in-game microtransactions in a very similar way. The difference is, Fortnite is free to play. How could you release in-game purchases to compete with your free-to-play competitor who, by the way, also helped provide support for your Unreal Engine during PUBG's development, and yet still you managed to have the skins be of a lower quality? I wouldn't advise buying skins of any kind, but still, this is just embarrassing. I couldn't even get into a game for this video without experiencing my first crash. Honestly, in-game purchases for a game like PUBG just shouldn't be a thing. They're so evidently a ploy to squeeze out just the tiniest bit of revenue from an already paying customer that it's actually sad. This wouldn't be such an issue if the reward system were better. Complete these challenges, grats, you get the temporary form of clothing you already have. Collect enough battle points to receive a crate you may or may not have to pay to open. Here you go, a reward that's worth 4% of the points you've invested. I feel like a good game should reward the player for the time they've invested. What Pubg has done is simply cast a line to hook the player into a cycle of discontent. You receive lackluster reward after lackluster reward until eventually you feel the urge to buy a skin. Give decent rewards to the player first, then you should expand on microtransactions. So, I'm off to a pretty good start with this game analysis already. How about we just play some Pubg? Huh? Oh. So before you say anything about the number of daily players impacting queue times, I'd like to just say two things. First of all, MW2 has a pretty low player count, and yet it can still find games much faster than this. Some of my queue times would last for up to 14 minutes or more. This is absurd. Now allow me to redirect your attention to how another Battle Royale has tackled this same issue. Here I am with Blackout, and I'm just going to search for a game. Only 12 seconds! I'm already in a lobby waiting for other people to join. You may argue whether this should even count as me being in-game, and yeah, I can kinda see your point, but this is so much better than looking at a still image for 10 minutes straight. In this, I can walk around, I can pick up a gun, and I can shoot at people. I can have some fun, as it doesn't actually feel like I'm waiting, and that's the real problem with PUBG's matchmaking. They do nothing to help disguise the wait time, and it really suffers for it. All you can do is chase a woman down the street with apples, but this feature is only available on Sanhok. They used to have this sorted out, but they chose to remove the weapons from the waiting areas in favour of boosting performance, which brings me straight to my next point. PUBG is not well optimised. Are you seeing this texture loading right now? Even Hello Kitty Roller Rescue has better graphics than this. Video games need to be somewhat accessible on mid-range hardware. Typically most gamers don't have the money to spend on an amazing graphics card to run your game, and honestly they shouldn't have to. Ring of Elysium, a battle royale that's been in early access for less than 3 months, seems to have better performance than PUBG. I probably wouldn't have even noticed this if my friends didn't express to me how much better ROE generally feels when compared to Battlegrounds. This isn't even just my opinion anymore. I think that Elysium still has a long way to go before it can match the same standard that other battle royales have to offer, but still, its potential is undeniable and my friends can see it. So why is it so difficult for PUBG to fix its performance issues? When this is paired with a poor server, the cracks in PUBG's gameplay really starts to show. Have a look at this death cam from one of my recent matches. If you look carefully, you might just be able to see that this guy isn't shooting at me anymore, he's shooting at a shadow Randy 10 paces back. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this could be happening for one of two reasons. Either A, the death cams are slightly delayed in regard to my movement and therefore I was actually standing where this guy is aiming, or B, and what I feel like is the more likely of the two, the server tick rate is trash. Now, for those of you who may not know, the tick rate of a server is the rate in which a simulation is ran. Essentially, it's the server-based equivalent of a person's frame rate. As simply as I can put it, it's how often the server updates to register my inputs, such as when I'm running. After gaining quite a few kills, seeing a death cam like this can be both frustrating and disheartening. When you die in a video game, it shouldn't represent the end of your playtime, and really great games such as Dark Souls 3 and Cuphead have a very unique talent for taking this kind of upset and using it to urge you forward. You don't feel like you're starting all over again because you have something to learn from your failure, ultimately making you a better player. The challenges in these games are normally fair, and when you're able to re-evaluate how you were defeated, the next attempt is more enjoyable as you test what you've learnt and become even more adamant to see your challenge overcome. In PUBG, there is no such thing as a happy ending unless you're the last man standing. This means a lot more of your time is spent reassessing how you've lost and looking at death cams like these. The more you watch, the harder it is for you to find faults in your own gameplay. Any mistakes I may have made are buried under a landfill of excuses I can make due to how poorly these death cams recite those events. This removes any motivation I may have had to try again, as I'm not seeing a fault in what I'm doing and I'm just more aware of how broken the game is. When I'm clearly shot from behind cover, what am I more likely to think? Oh, the other guy clearly got the better of me there and I can't wait to try again, or fuck this game, I'm gonna go play some Hello Kitty Roller Rescue. When you have such a competitive game like PUBG, there can't be any question of what's fair and what's not. If you're constantly having to ask whether you feel like your death is just or wonder if perhaps the other player is cheating, you can start to lose sight of how to improve. Without a clear way to get better, every game is just a wager of your time and it's a struggle to avoid an unsatisfactory ending. Most of the gameplay is just monotonous and irritating. Very rarely will you actually see a game without a sizable portion of the experience consisting of just your character running through a field. The environments you explore are generally quite unimaginative as you walk through indistinctive open fields or loot buildings that are clearly carbon copies of other nearby structures. Admittedly, one of their newer maps, Sandhawk, does appear to be more inspired, with more iconic places such as Cave, Quarry and Ruin serving as great standards. Not every game needs to be completely unique, but its settings should resemble some form of theme, adding personality to your locations and distracting the player from the fact that this area exists purely as a prop in a game. There should be something new to explore to fully immerse yourself in a game. This contributes to the idea of progression, as every match should feel like its own little adventure. Every time you get into a game, you should be able to find something new to discover, and this is where a game's attention to detail really shines. Not only is this a window into the passion involved with making a game, but it's also most of the fun of playing one. Here are two clips of me running from one town to the next. One of them was recorded on PUBG, while the other was recorded on Fortnite. Do I even need to suggest which of these were more enjoyable for me to play? I understand that when making these massive maps, there are going to be some areas that feel empty when compared to cities and towns, but it isn't the player's job to avoid or overlook these places, it should be the developer's job to inhabit them with beautiful scenery or interesting objects. This may seem like a fairly minute issue, but when you spend a lot of time on these maps, you can quickly see through the surface and begin to mind the details. Maps like Miramar and Erangel tend to feel more vacant and empty when compared to the much smaller and more confined map Sandhawk. I swear, most of the issues I have are fixed when playing Sandhawk over the other maps, which is a problem in itself. When playing Miramar and Erangel, finding a decent weapon early on can be troublesome. In this clip, I loot 4 buildings and yet I'm unable to obtain a weapon that surpasses the pistols. Hop over to Sandhawk, and already I've obtained the second best sniper in the game. Faster queue times, less open spaces, better weapon spawns, and more appealing scenery. Clearly with Sandhawk, they've improved with their map design. I only hope that this trend continues into their newest edition, Vikendi. I've spoken a lot so far about issues they haven't really addressed, but through Fix Pubg, I can investigate some reported bugs that the community have called out, and supposedly they've now been fixed. At random, I selected 3 of the astonishing 100 bugs reported and began experimenting to find out as to whether these issues had actually been resolved. As shown in this footage, I can indeed drop half and full stacks of ammo, so that's 1 bug squashed. I was experiencing some strange input lag when testing this next issue, but I was able to get on the bike frequently enough to warrant a pass. Sometimes you can clearly see that I'm looking at the driver's seat while hopping in the back, but they just said it was easier to land in the front, and it does seem like they've widened the range further around the driver's seat, which means 2 bugs have been acceptably resolved. The final bug on this list is a bit more complicated to test. It reads, the UAZ currently takes more damage when colliding with an object compared to other vehicles. This will be fixed. Along with this, they have an attached completion date, the 12th of September 2018. This will be more difficult for me to prove whether it has actually received a fix, as there are more variables at play here. Based from their own wording, to test this, I needed to drive a UAZ into an object and note down exactly how much damage the car sustains. Then, I would need to drive another vehicle into the same object at roughly the same speed and compare the results. Up first was the UAZ, and using the fuel gauge as a ruler, I can measure that about 4 sections of damage was lost when the car crashed at 67 km per hour into this giant rock. In a similar fashion, I collided the buggy into this object at a slightly faster speed, and yet it took significantly less damage when compared to the UAZ. I'm not even that mad about them falsely reporting this bug as fixed. What irritates me the most is declaring the project a success when your game is still so broken. It's such a bad message to be sending, because this makes it sound like the game is acceptably repaired with just minor issues remaining. It also conveys the idea that further improvements and bug fixes would occur less often in the future. Taking pride in seeking acknowledgement for the problems you've resolved is one thing. However, completely declaring Fix Pubg a success is just a spit in the face towards anyone who can see how horribly flawed this title is. Maybe they just needed a win to try and receive some positive feedback, but it shouldn't have been done in such a dismissive manner. Fix Pubg should be an ongoing effort, functioning as both a support system for players who continue to discover more game-breaking bugs, but also as a clear demonstration that this game's developers are aware of and care enough to continue to fix issues to improve their game. Instead, like most things, Pubg fails to fully realise its potential, and has ignorantly declared this movement a success. Great while it lasted, but ultimately an outrageous disappointment. Just a couple last things worthy of note. I tabbed out at one point to reply to a friend during recording. Battlegrounds punished me with an infinitely initializing loading screen. As well as this, I would have liked to criticise the parachuting mechanics, but it seems like the new patch will rework this. So hold out a little longer, and hopefully they don't mess it up.